Hello everyone, my name is Fatma. This is my multimedia project. I'm a poet, I'm a writer, I'm an aspiring actress slash filmmaker. The theory for today's project is Erikson's stages of development, so basically his psychosocial theory stages. Let's get into it. He has trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt, initiative versus guilt, and industry versus inferiority. First one that he talks about is called trust versus mistrust. Now, this is from birth to 18 months years old. Now, for me personally, my parents were not together at this time. Not together, they were together, but Baba was an American Pakistani, so he was here in the USA working when I was born, and so I was with my mom. But here's the thing, I truly were able to build that trust bond. I trust my mom with everything. Why? Because I was the first baby of the family, so I was quite literally spoiled. Baba would come home here and there to come see me, and most of my memories with him around this time is us doing naps together. I will insert pictures here, super cute. That's probably the last time that I slept peacefully. Next is your early childhood, which is autonomy versus shame and doubt. I find this one very interesting because this is when the role of independence starts building within you. 3 is where everything started changing for me, is that there's initiative versus guilt. This is the third stage of the psychosocial development, and this happens during the preschool years. That is where children start to assert their power and control over the world through directing play and other social interactions. My immigrant parents were terrified of who I was going to become, so they tried their best to be hyper aware of everything that I was doing, which was very difficult. Came from Pakistan, you don't know the culture, you don't know the environment here. And again, since I already had that trust factor with my mom, I was able to confide in her. But since I was figuring out that identity for myself and I was no longer given the agency to do so, I became very, very confused. That had different guidelines on how to dress, how to live, how to act, versus what I saw with my mom in the earlier years. My mom was more patient, my mom was more understanding, my mom was more in her femininity. Guilt is something I started holding on to very closely. I grew up in an environment where my parents were sure of how they wanted to raise me and what they wanted to embody into me. I feel like that guilt would not exist. Next comes the stage 4, which is the industry versus inferiority. My mother took education very seriously, and she invested a lot of time in sitting down with us and making sure that our basic foundations were very strong. She also fought very hard for us. I'm going to give you an example. When I first moved here, the school system here placed me in 2nd grade, even though I had no prior education to that. I did go to preschool for a few months, but then I came here to America, and the school insisted that it goes against the system to put me back in 1st grade, and they wanted me to continue being in 2nd grade. Now, mom decided that no, she needs to be put in 1st grade where she can learn her basic foundations so that she doesn't struggle for the rest of her life. Insisted until she finally got the principal's number, and she contacted him, and she expressed to him that if my daughter's foundation is not set strong, if she doesn't know her basic ABCs, she's going to struggle for the rest of her life. Because let's say that she pushes through 2nd grade, when she goes into 3rd grade, she's going to have to work even harder and try to catch up with everybody else. Versus if she goes back to 1st grade and she builds up her foundation, then the rest of the years are going to become very, very easy for her. Because if you go back to the earlier stages, like stages 3, initiative versus guilt, and even autonomy versus shame and doubt, since prior to that I grew up in an environment where I was spoiled and I was also encouraged to do whatever I wanted because I was the first child. I was very adventurous. Versus in stages 4, industry versus inferiority, I started going to the confusion stage very, very early, even though that's stage 5, which is identity versus confusion. You are in your adolescence and children begin to explore their independence and develop a sense of self. Like the black sheep of the family, I had very different interests. Like I wanted to write. I also realized that my dad did not really prioritize education the way my mom was prioritizing it, because I feel like I could not be who I am. I did not even have the space to explore what my interests are, what my passions are, because I was constantly seeing them speak about what they wanted from me. Erik's theory goes deep into what identity is, and he says that it's about the beliefs and idols and values that help shape and guide a person's behavior in a Muslim environment. Around this time I started holding on to religion very heavy because religion gave me answers for all the confusion that I was seeing in my household. And again, I saw a contrast happening there. What I was learning through Islam was very different than a lot of the things that my dad was embodying us to do. Now is stage 6, which is intimacy versus isolation. This is for young adults, and he says that young adults need to form an intimate, loving relationships with other people. I have a lot of mentors, and I have a lot of people in my life who have allowed me to explore who I am and what I want to do. The biggest milestone in my life currently is 1, I was New York City's Youth Poet Laureate in 2024. I'm the first Pakistani girl who holds this title in the entire history of New York, which to me gave me a sense of that stage of stage 5 identity versus confusion. When I won that title, I no longer felt like the black sheep of the family. I feel like those same things that were making my guardian parents like fear of some of what is going to happen, how am I going to progress in this country, they started respecting my work more, they started respecting me as an individual more. Milestones are only here because of the experiences that I've had. Even the little failures that I've had led me to this moment. If I had everything perfect from the beginning, like he said, I succeeded in each stage of my life because all my emotional and psychological needs were being taken care of, I don't think I would have been at the place that I am now, because there's wisdom in the hurt and the pain that I've experienced that allows me to not pass on that cycle furthermore. I think that this theory is a template for everything that happens in your life, but it does not determine if you're successful. But yes, this is my documentary for the multimedia project.